Captain Jake Morrison stood at the window of Aurora Prime Station and watched the stars. He had never seen so many different ships in one place before. Each one belonged to a different alien race. Some ships looked like beautiful crystals floating in space. Others were dark metal shapes that seemed to eat the light around them. Jake's ship looked small and simple next to them all. Amy Carter walked up beside him. She was his communications officer and one of his best friends. "Nervous about the meeting?" she asked. Jake shook his head, but his hands were tight behind his back. This was humanity's first real chance to join the galactic community. Everything had to go perfectly. Dr. Lisa Hayes joined them at the window. She was excited about meeting new alien species and learning about their biology. "The Zephyrians should arrive soon," she said while checking her tablet. "Their princess will lead the talks for their empire." Jake had read everything he could about the Zephyrians. They were an old race with amazing technology. Their ships could travel faster than anything humans had ever built. Their cities floated in the clouds of gas giant planets. Most important of all, they controlled the trade routes that humanity needed to reach other star systems. A massive ship appeared near the station. It was white, like fresh snow, and seemed to glow with its own light. Beautiful patterns moved across its surface like living art. Jake had never seen anything so wonderful. The ship was 10 times bigger than his own vessel. "That's them," Amy said quietly. "The Zephyrian royal ship." Inside the station's main conference room, Jake waited with his small team. Amy sat on his left and Dr. Hayes sat on his right. Behind them were 2 security officers and an engineer. The room was huge and designed to hold many different types of beings. Some chairs were for creatures with 4 legs. Others were for beings that needed to float in water tanks. Other alien delegates were already seated around the circular table. Jake recognized some of them from his studies. The tall, blue Centauri ambassador sat with perfect posture. Her name was Elena Voss, and she was known for her wisdom. The small furry traders from the Vegan system chattered quietly among themselves. Their leader was a female named Rosa Martinez, who was actually half human. The room became quiet when the doors opened. Princess Lyra Veltar entered with her group of advisors. Jake's breath caught in his throat. She was the most beautiful being he had ever seen. Her skin was silver like moonlight and glowed softly. Strange markings on her face and arms pulsed with gentle light. Her hair was white as starlight and moved like it was underwater. She wore robes that seemed to be made from liquid starlight itself. Behind the princess walked Lady Vera Stormwind, her chief advisor. Vera's eyes were sharp and missed nothing. She looked around the room like a hunter searching for prey. Several other Zephyrian nobles followed them. All of them moved with the grace of beings who had never doubted their own importance. Princess Lyra took her seat at the table. She did not look at the other delegates. Her face showed that she thought this whole meeting was beneath her. Jake could feel the tension in the room. Everyone knew how important the Zephyrians were. Ambassador Voss stood up first. "Welcome, Your Highness. We are honored by your presence." The princess nodded slightly but said nothing. Jake decided it was time to introduce himself. He stood up slowly and walked toward the princess. He had practiced this moment many times. He wanted to show respect for her culture while representing humanity with dignity. "Your Highness," Jake said with a bow, "I am Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. My people are grateful for this chance to meet with the great Zephyrian Empire. We hope to learn from your wisdom and perhaps find ways our peoples can help each other." Princess Lyra finally looked at him. Her eyes were like liquid silver, and they were cold as space itself. She studied him from head to toe like he was some strange insect. Then she turned to Lady Vera and spoke in their own language. Jake could not understand the words, but he heard the tone. It was full of disgust. "Another primitive human seeking to elevate themselves through association with their betters," Princess Lyra said loudly in perfect English. She wanted everyone to understand her words. "Your species has nothing of value to offer the Empire. You have barely learned to leave your own planet. Why should we waste time with such backward creatures?" The room became deadly silent. Jake felt heat rise in his face, but he kept his expression calm. Amy's hand moved toward her weapon, but Jake gave her a small signal to stop. Dr. Hayes looked shocked and hurt. Some of the other delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Ambassador Voss frowned at the princess's rudeness. Even the Vegan traders stopped their chattering to stare. Jake stood there for a long moment. He could argue with her. He could list humanity's achievements or challenge her assumptions. He could get angry and storm out. Instead, he did something that surprised everyone in the room. He smiled gently and bowed again. "I understand, Your Highness. Thank you for your honesty. I wish you and your people great success in these negotiations." His voice was calm and respectful. There was no anger or hurt in it. Jake turned and walked back to his seat. He sat down quietly and folded his hands on the table. Amy and Dr. Hayes stared at him in amazement. They had expected him to fight back, or at least defend, humanity. Princess Lyra watched him with confusion. She had expected anger or pleading. Instead, the human captain had simply accepted her judgment and moved on. For some reason, this made her even more annoyed. The meeting continued, but Jake said very little. When other delegates asked for humanity's input, he gave short, polite answers. He did not try to impress anyone or prove his worth. He simply listened and learned. Ambassador Voss watched Jake carefully throughout the meeting. She had seen many first contacts in her long career. Most new species either became aggressive when insulted or tried desperately to prove themselves. This human did neither. He maintained his dignity without fighting back. It was unusual and impressive. When the meeting ended, Jake stood up and bowed to the room. "Thank you all for this opportunity to learn. My team and I will be available if anyone needs anything." He walked out with his people following behind him. Princess Lyra watched him leave. Something about his reaction bothered her, but she could not figure out what. Lady Vera leaned close to her ear. "That was easier than expected," she whispered. "The humans know their place." But Ambassador Voss was thinking different thoughts. She had lived long enough to recognize true strength when she saw it. The human captain had just shown more dignity and class than many royal beings she had met. She wondered if Princess Lyra had just made a very big mistake. Jake Morrison sat in his small quarters aboard Aurora Prime Station. Amy Carter knocked on his door and entered without waiting for an answer. She had been his friend for too many years to stand on ceremony now. "The other delegates are asking, 'Where you went?'" Amy said. She sat down in the chair across from his desk. "Some of them want to continue talks with humanity even after what the princess said." Jake looked up from the technical manual he was reading. "That's good. You and Dr. Hayes can handle those meetings. I'm sure you'll do better than I did." Fo studied his face. She knew Jake well enough to see he was not angry or hurt. He was thinking about something else entirely. "What are you planning?" she asked. "I'm going to learn," Jake said simply. "Rosa Martinez invited me to see how the station really works. Did you know they have problems with their power grid that no one has been able to solve for 3 years? Rosa Martinez was the chief of maintenance for Aurora Prime. She was half human and half Altarian, which made her an outcast in both societies. Most people ignored her, but Jake had noticed her during his first day on the station. She knew more about how things really worked than any of the fancy diplomats. Jake spent the next morning in the station's lower levels with Rosa. She showed him the massive power conduits that fed energy to every part of Aurora Prime. The system was incredibly complex, designed by 5 different alien races working together. "The problem started 6 months ago," Rosa explained as they walked through a tunnel filled with humming machinery. "Power fluctuations in sections 7 through 12. The Andromedans think it's a software issue. The Centauri believe it's hardware. Failure. The Zephyrians say the whole system is primitive and needs to be replaced." Jake studied the diagnostic readouts on Rosa's tablet. The pattern of failures was strange. "Can you show me the maintenance logs for the past year?" While Jake worked on technical problems, Dr. Hayes was making friends in the station's research labs. The vegan scientists were fascinated by her studies of Earth biology. They had never seen a planet with such diverse life forms. Dr. Kate Phillips was a young Andromedans researcher who had been struggling with her project for months. She was trying to understand how Earth plants could grow in so many different environments. "Your species is amazing," Kate told Dr. Hayes over lunch. "Most planets have life that follows very strict patterns. Earth life just adapts to anything." Amy was having her own success in the communications center. She had learned 7 alien languages during the trip to Aurora Prime. The station's translators were impressed by how quickly she picked up new concepts. Grace Chen, their pilot, was sharing flying techniques with pilots from a dozen different species in the station's simulator rooms. Her unconventional approaches to navigation problems were causing quite a stir. Meanwhile, Princess Lyra was growing more frustrated by the hour. She had expected the humans to either grovel for her attention or leave the station in shame. Instead, they seemed to be having a wonderful time without her. "The humans are becoming popular," Lady Vera reported during their private meeting. "Other delegates speak well of their captain. Some are asking why we dismiss them so quickly." Princess Lyra stared out the window of her luxury quarters. "What could they possibly be doing that impresses anyone?" "The captain solved the Andromedan power problem in 2 days," Vera said while reading from her tablet. "Something about thinking outside the box. Their scientists are calling his approach brilliant." The princess felt a strange twist in her stomach. "Impossible. The Andromedans have been working on that problem for months." "There's more," Vera continued. "Their doctor has shared medical data that could help cure the Rigel plague. Their pilot has developed new formation flying techniques. Even their communications officer has translated 3 ancient texts that scholars have been struggling with for years." Princess Lyra turned away from the window. "Gather information on this Captain Morrison. I want to know everything about him." Jake was in the station's garden level when Princess Zara Veltar found him. Zara was Princess Lyra's younger cousin and much more curious about other species. She had been watching the humans with growing interest. "Captain Morrison," Zara said as she approached. She was smaller than Princess Lyra, but just as beautiful. Her silver skin had a warmer tone, and her eyes were kinder. "I hope you are enjoying your stay on Aurora Prime." Jake stood up from where he had been examining an earth plant that Dr. Hayes had brought as a gift for the station. "Your Highness, yes, this is an amazing place. I've learned more in 3 days than I thought possible. I wanted to apologize for my cousin's behavior," Zara said quietly. Her words were harsh and unfair. Jake smiled. "Thank you, but no apology is needed." Princess Lyra was honest about her feelings. "I respect honesty, even when it's difficult to hear." Zara tilted her head. "You're not angry." "Why would I be angry? Your cousin doesn't know me or my people. She made a judgment based on what information she had. Maybe someday she'll have reason to change her mind, maybe not. Either way is fine." This answer surprised Zara. Most beings would have been insulted or would have tried to argue their worth. "You're very different from what I expected," she said. "Different how? Most species that come here want something from us. Trade rights, technology, protection. You seem content to just learn and help where you can." Jake nodded. "My people believe that good relationships are built slowly, through trust and mutual respect. We're not in a hurry." That afternoon, Jake received a message from Earth Command. They wanted him to do whatever was necessary to secure an alliance with the Zephyrians. The message included authorization to offer Earth's most advanced technologies as bargaining chips. Jake read the message twice, then deleted it. Amy found him an hour later in the observation deck, watching stars. "Earth Command sent new orders, didn't they?" Amy asked. "How did you know?" "The same look you get when politicians tell you to compromise your principles for the greater good." Jake smiled. "I sent a reply. Told them we're building relationships that will last centuries, not quick deals that fall apart in a few years. And if they order you home, then we go home. But I don't think they will. The reports you and Dr. Hayes have been sending show how much we're accomplishing here." The next day, Jake finished his work on the power grid problem. The solution was elegantly simple once he found the root cause. A feedback loop between 2 different alien technologies was creating the fluctuations. By adding a small human-designed buffer component, the entire system stabilized. Rosa Martinez was amazed. "How did you see what we all missed?" "Fresh eyes," Jake said. "Sometimes being an outsider is an advantage. You know how things are supposed to work. I only know how they actually work." Word of Jake's success spread quickly through the station. Ambassador Voss requested a private meeting with him that evening. "Captain Morrison," she said when they met in her quarters, "I've been watching your team with great interest. Your approach to diplomacy is unusual. How so, Ambassador? Most species come here to take what they can get. You seem more interested in giving what you can offer. Jake thought about this. My people have a saying, you can't have good neighbors if you're not willing to be a good neighbor. We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves, but not at the cost of who we are. Ambassador Voss studied him with her ancient eyes. And who are you, Captain? We're explorers, problem solvers, storytellers. We're curious about everything and everyone. We make mistakes, but we try to learn from them. Most of all, we believe that any species that can build starships and cross the galaxy must have something valuable to teach and something valuable to learn. The ambassador nodded slowly. Princess Lyra is beginning to realize she may have misjudged your people. Perhaps, but that's her choice to make. 3 days later, Jake announced that his ship would be leaving Aurora Prime ahead of schedule. Before departure, he submitted detailed reports on everything his team had learned. More importantly, he left behind technical specifications for water purification systems, agricultural improvements, and power grid stabilization techniques. All of the information was marked as free gifts to any species that wanted to use it. No trade agreements required, no political strings attached. Princess Lyra read the reports in her quarters while her ship prepared to depart. The human technologies were impressive, but not revolutionary. What bothered her was the note attached to each report. These gifts are offered in the spirit of friendship and cooperation between all sentient beings. May they bring prosperity and peace to those who use them. The note was signed simply, Captain Jake Morrison and the crew of the UES Freedom, representing the people of Earth. As Jake's ship undocked from Aurora Prime, Princess Lyra watched from her window. She felt something she had never experienced before. It took her several minutes to recognize the feeling. It was regret. 3 months after Jake Morrison left Aurora Prime, Princess Lyra Veltar sat in her private study reading intelligence reports. The walls of her palace were made from crystal that showed the swirling clouds of her gas giant homeworld. Tonight, the view did not bring her the usual peace. Agent Nina Cross entered the room quietly. Nina was the head of Zephyrian intelligence and one of the few people allowed to interrupt the princess without permission. Her silver face was marked with concern. Your Highness, the latest reports from our trade network, Nina said, as she placed a data tablet on the princess's desk. Lyra picked up the tablet and began reading. Her eyes grew wider with each page. This can't be accurate, she said finally. I've confirmed it through 3 separate sources, Nina replied. Humanity has become the most requested trading partner in the Rigel sector, the Centauri Federation, and the Outer Rim colonies. In just 3 months, the princess stood up and walked to her window. Below, the floating cities of her homeworld glowed like jewels in the poisonous atmosphere. The Zephyrian Empire controlled the largest trade network in the galaxy. But these reports suggested that was changing. How is this possible? They have no advanced technology. Their ships are slow. Their weapons are primitive. Nina activated a holographic display that filled half the room. It showed trade routes, diplomatic connections, and economic data from across the galaxy. Bright green lines represented new agreements with humanity. There were dozens of them. They're not selling technology, Your Highness. They're selling something else. What? Trust. Lyra turned away from the window to stare at her intelligence chief. Explain. Nina touched the hologram and zoomed in on the Andromedan trade cluster. 3 weeks ago, Captain Morrison's ship arrived at New Andromeda Station. There was a dispute between the Andromedans and the Vegan Trading Guild over shipping rights. The argument had been going on for 2 years. And? Morrison spent 6 hours talking to both sides, not negotiating, just listening. Then he suggested a solution so simple that everyone wondered why they hadn't thought of it before. The Andromedans get their fast shipping routes. The Vegas get exclusive rights to luxury goods transport. Everyone wins. Lyra frowned. That seems impossible. Our own diplomats have been trying to solve that dispute for years. It gets stranger, Your Highness. Nina switched the display to show the Centauri system. Last month, there was a conflict between the Rigel colonies and the Centauri Federation. Border raids, accusations of theft, threats of war. Captain Morrison wasn't even invited to mediate. What happened? He showed up anyway, not with warships or demands. He brought medical supplies for plague victims on both sides of the border. While his doctors worked to save lives, Morrison sat down with the leaders and asked one question. What do your children need most? Princess Lyra felt that strange twist in her stomach again. And that solved a border war? Within a week. Both sides realized they were fighting over empty space while their people suffered from disease and poverty. Morrison helped them design a joint colony project that gives both species what they actually need. The hologram switched to show personnel files. Lyra recognized Amy Carter, Dr. Lisa Hayes, and the other humans from Aurora Prime. But now there were dozens of other names and faces. Morrison's communications officer, Amy Carter, has become the most requested translator in 3 sectors, Nina continued. She doesn't just translate languages. She helps species understand each other's cultures and values. Another face appeared, in the hologram. Dr. Kate Phillips, the young Andromedan's researcher that Dr. Hayes had befriended. Dr. Phillips left her position at the Andromedan Science Council to work with human researchers. They've developed treatments for 17 different diseases in the past month. Princess Lyra sat down heavily in her chair. What about their military? Surely they're building weapons, expanding their territory. Nina shook her head. That's the most unusual part, Your Highness. They've been offered military bases in 6 different systems. They've turned down all of them. They've also been offered exclusive mining rights, advanced technology transfers, and defensive alliances. They've turned down those too. Then what? Do they want? According to our sources, they keep asking the same question. How can we help? The princess stared at the intelligence reports for a long time. Everything she had been taught about galactic politics suggested this was impossible. Species fought for resources, territory, and advantages over their neighbors. That was the natural order of things. There's something else, Your Highness, Nina said quietly. It's about your sister. Princess Jade Veltar was Lyra's younger sister and the heir to the throne after her. Jade was exploring the Outer Rim territories with a small fleet when her ships had been attacked by pirates near the human border systems. What about Jade? She was captured 6 days ago. The pirates are demanding ransom and political concessions. The Centauri Federation has offered to help, but their nearest ships are 2 weeks away. Lyra stood up quickly. Assemble our fastest ships. We'll negotiate with these pirates ourselves. Your Highness, there may be another option. Nina activated a new display showing ship positions near the pirate stronghold. Captain Morrison's ship is only 18 hours away from Jade's last known position. The human? Why would he help us? I don't know, Your Highness. But according to his pattern of behavior, he probably doesn't need a reason. Princess Lyra thought about this for several minutes. Her pride told her to refuse help from the primitive human captain she had dismissed so rudely. But Jade's life was more important than pride. Send a message to Morrison, she said finally. Tell him what happened. Ask for his assistance. What should we offer in return? Nothing. If he's truly as helpful as these reports suggest, offering payment might insult him. Nina looked surprised but sent the message immediately. The reply came back within an hour. Captain Morrison says he's already on his way, Nina reported. He asks for detailed information about the pirate ships and Princess Jade's escort vessels. He promises to contact us as soon as he knows anything. Lyra spent the next 2 days pacing her study and reading every report about human activities. The more she learned, the more uncomfortable she became. Not because the humans were threatening, but because they were exactly what she had claimed they were not. They were genuinely helpful, innovative, and peaceful. They seemed to solve problems not for profit or advantage, but because problems needed solving. They made friends not to gain allies, but because they enjoyed learning about other species. Most disturbing of all, Captain Morrison had shown her exactly the kind of leader she claimed to be, but knew she was not. The message from Morrison came on the 3rd day. Princess Jade is safe and healthy. The pirates have been convinced to find a different line of work. Your sister's ships will reach Zephyrian space within 48 hours. No payment or favors required. It was the right thing to do. Princess Lyra read the message 3 times. No demands, no political advantage sought, no request for recognition or reward. Just a simple statement that helping was the right thing to do. Lady Vera Stormwind found the princess in her study that evening. Vera had been unusually quiet since the intelligence reports started arriving. As Lyra's oldest advisor, she had supported the princess's decision to dismiss the humans. "Your Highness," Vera said as she sat down across from Lyra's desk, "I believe I may have given you poor advice regarding the humans." Lyra looked up from the reports she was reading. "How so?" "I encouraged you to see them as primitive and worthless." "I was wrong. Why are you telling me this now?" Vera activated her own data tablet and showed it to the princess. "Because I've been reading reports from our nobles across the Empire. Lady Catherine Blaze, Duchess Stella Vance, and others are asking difficult questions about our policies." "What kind of questions?" "They want to know why we're not working with the humans. They want to know why our trade routes are losing business to human partnerships. Most importantly, they want to know why a species we called primitive can solve problems that our advanced empire cannot." Princess Lyra set down her tablet and rubbed her temples. A headache was building behind her eyes. "What do you recommend?" "That we reconsider our position regarding humanity. Perhaps arrange another meeting with Captain Morrison. And if he refuses?" Vera was quiet for a moment. "Your Highness, I've studied every report about this human captain. Based on his actions, I don't think he would refuse to meet with anyone who asked politely, but I also don't think he'll come to us seeking forgiveness or trying to prove his worth." Princess Lyra understood what Vera was really saying. If she wanted to repair the relationship with humanity, she would have to admit her mistake and approach them as equals. The thought made her stomach twist with something that might have been fear or might have been shame. That night, Princess Lyra stood at her window looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Captain Morrison was continuing his mission of exploration and friendship. He was building the kind of relationships and reputation that she had always claimed the Zephyrian Empire possessed. The worst part was not that she had been wrong about the humans. The worst part was that she was beginning to understand exactly what she had lost when she dismissed Jake Morrison with such contempt. She had lost the chance to learn from someone who was genuinely trying to make the galaxy a better place. 6 months after their first meeting, Princess Lyra Veltar received a report that changed everything she thought she knew about Captain Jake Morrison. She was reviewing trade agreements in her council chamber when Agent Nina Cross burst through the doors without announcement. "Your Highness, you need to see this immediately," Nina said, her usually calm demeanor shattered. Lyra looked up from her work, annoyed at the interruption. What could possibly be so urgent? Nina activated the large holographic display in the center of the room. It showed a list of 7 different alien governments, each with their official seals glowing in the projection. "The Andromedans, the Centauri Federation, the Vegan Trading Guild, the Rigel Colonies, the Altarian Republic, the Outer Rim Coalition, and the Independent Worlds Alliance," Nina announced. "I can read the names myself," Princess Lyra said impatiently. "What about them?" "They've all offered Captain Morrison leadership positions in their governments. The Andromedans want to make him their supreme commander. The Centauri offered him a seat on their high council. The Rigel colonies want him to be their trade ambassador." Princess Lyra stood up slowly. These were not minor positions. The roles Nina had mentioned were among the most powerful in the galaxy. And his response? He turned them all down. The princess sat back down, confusion clear on her face. "That's impossible. No one refuses that kind of power and influence." Nina switched the display to show Morrison's actual responses to each offer. His words appeared in the air before them. "To the Andromedan Science Council, I am honored by your offer, but my place is exploring the unknown and building bridges between peoples who have never met. To the Centauri High Command, your faith in my abilities means more than I can express, but I believe I can serve peace better by remaining independent of any single government. To the Rigel Colonial Administration, thank you for this incredible opportunity, but I must continue my mission of discovery and friendship." Princess Lyra read through all 7 responses. Each one was polite, grateful, and firm in declining. What is he doing instead? He's leading exploration missions to uncharted sectors. His crew has made first contact with 4 new species in the past month. Each contact has resulted in peaceful relationships and mutual benefit. The hologram shifted to show personnel files. Dr. Kate Phillips appeared, along with several other faces Lyra didn't recognize. "His team has expanded," Nina continued. Dr. Kate Phillips left her research position to join him full-time. Commander Holly Reed, the best pilot in the Andromedan fleet, requested transfer to human service. Specialist Luna Martinez, a brilliant engineer from the Rigel colonies, abandoned a high-paying corporate job to work on Morrison's ship. Why would they give up successful careers to work with humans? According to their statements, they want to be part of something meaningful. Morrison's mission of exploration and peaceful contact appeals to idealists throughout the galaxy. Princess Lyra walked to the window of her council chamber. Outside, she could see the floating spires of her capital city. Her empire controlled more territory and resources than any other single power in the galaxy, yet she felt suddenly small. "There's more, Your Highness," Nina said quietly. "Our own engineers have been studying the technical specifications Morrison left at Aurora Prime. Dr. Rachel Monroe believes the human power grid improvements could solve our energy crisis." This got Lyra's full attention. The Zephyrian Empire had been struggling with power shortages for decades. Their ancient fusion cores were failing, and replacement technology was proving difficult to develop. How significant are these improvements? Dr. Monroe estimates they could increase our power output by 30% while reducing maintenance costs by half. The designs are elegant and use principles our engineers never considered. Nina switched the display to show technical schematics. Even though Lyra was not an engineer, she could see the simple beauty of the human designs. "Commander Beth Walsh has been working on similar problems," Nina continued. "She believes combining human innovation with Zephyrian technology could revolutionize our entire infrastructure." Princess Lyra felt the weight of her earlier decisions pressing down on her. "Have any of our people contacted Morrison about this?" "No, Your Highness. They're afraid of being seen as traitors for working with a species you publicly dismissed." The princess closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Her pride and prejudice were literally preventing her empire from solving critical problems. "Prepare a formal request for technological consultation," she said finally. "Send it to Captain Morrison." "What should we offer in compensation?" Lyra thought about Morrison's pattern of behavior. "Nothing. Ask for his help because we need it, not because we can pay for it." The response from Morrison came within 2 days. He would arrive within the week, bringing his best engineers and scientists. His message was professional and helpful, with no mention of their previous encounter. When Morrison's ship approached the Zephyrian homeworld, Princess Lyra watched from the observation deck of her palace. The UES Freedom looked even smaller against the backdrop of her empire's massive orbital stations, but she no longer saw it as primitive. The human delegation that arrived at her palace was different from the group she remembered. Morrison still carried himself with quiet confidence, but now he was surrounded by beings from half a dozen different species. Dr. Kate Phillips had left her position with the Andromedans to work full-time with the human team. Commander Holly Reed was a legend among pilots, known for her innovative flying techniques. Specialist Luna Martinez had turned down a fortune in corporate contracts to join Morrison's mission. Most surprising of all was the inclusion of several Zephyrian scientists who had been working secretly with human researchers. Dr. Rachel Monroe and Commander Beth Walsh had risked their careers to pursue the technological collaborations their government had forbidden. Princess Lyra met the delegation in her formal throne room, but she did not sit on her throne. Instead, she stood at the same level as her guests, a subtle but important signal of respect. "Captain Morrison," she said when the humans entered. "Thank you for coming to assist us." Jake nodded politely. "Your Highness, my team is honored to help with your power grid challenges." There was no mention of their previous meeting, no reference to the insults she had delivered. Morrison treated her exactly as he would treat any leader who had asked for help. The work began immediately. Morrison and his team spent hours with Zephyrian engineers, studying the ancient fusion cores and the problems they were experiencing. Princess Lyra found excuses to visit the work areas, ostensibly to check on progress, but really to observe Morrison in action. What she saw amazed her. Morrison did not try to impress anyone with his knowledge or take credit for innovations. Instead, he asked questions, listened carefully to answers, and guided his team toward solutions that built on existing Zephyrian technology. When Dr. Rachel Monroe suggested a modification that could improve efficiency, Morrison encouraged her to take the lead on implementation. When Commander Beth Walsh identified a potential problem, he asked her to design the safeguards. "The best solutions come from understanding what you're working with," Morrison explained to a group of young Zephyrian engineers. "Your technology is incredibly advanced. We're just offering a different perspective on how to optimize it." Princess Lyra watched him mentor trainee Cora Banks and apprentice Iris Stone, treating them with the same respect he showed the senior engineers. He answered their questions patiently and encouraged them to think creatively about problems. On the third day of work, Princess Lyra found herself in the same room as Morrison during a break in the technical discussions. They were alone for the first time since Aurora Prime. "Captain," she said quietly, "I owe you an apology." Morrison looked up from the technical manual he was reading. "For what, Your Highness?" "For my behavior at Aurora Prime. My words were cruel and unfair." Morrison closed the manual and gave her his full attention. "Your Highness, you spoke honestly about your feelings at that time. I appreciate honesty, even when it's difficult to hear." "But I was wrong." "You made a judgment based on the information you had. That's what leaders do. I harbor no ill will about it." Princess Lyra studied his face, looking for signs of anger or hurt. She found none. "You're not angry?" "Why would I be angry? You've given my team the chance to work on fascinating problems alongside brilliant engineers. Your people have taught us as much as we've taught them." This response troubled her more than anger would have. Morrison genuinely seemed to hold no grudge against her. He had simply moved past her insult and focused on the work that needed to be done. "Most beings would not be so forgiving," she said. Morrison smiled. "Forgiveness implies there was something to forgive. You didn't know me or my people when we first met. Now you do. That's how relationships are built." Princess Lyra left, that conversation feeling more confused than ever. She had expected Morrison to either gloat about proving her wrong or demand acknowledgement of his worth. Instead, he treated their past encounter as simply a step in the process of getting to know each other. By the end of the week, the human Zephyrian engineering team had developed a solution that exceeded everyone's expectations. The new hybrid power cores would not only solve the energy crisis, but would be more efficient than anything either species had built independently. At the farewell ceremony, Princess Lyra stood before Morrison and his team. "Captain Morrison, your assistance has been invaluable. How can the Zephyrian Empire repay this debt?" Morrison shook his head. "There is no debt, Your Highness. This collaboration has been as valuable to us as it has been to you. We've learned from your engineers and your technology. That's payment enough." As Morrison's ship prepared to depart, Princess Lyra realized she was watching something she had never seen before. Here was a being who possessed real power and influence, yet used it only to help others. He could have leveraged his success into personal gain or political advantage, but instead he simply continued his mission of exploration and friendship. Princess Lyra had spent her life believing that power was about controlling others and gaining advantages over competitors. Morrison had shown her that true power came from empowering others and creating mutual benefits. The worst part was not that she had been wrong about him. The worst part was that she finally understood what kind of leader he was and realized how much she could have learned from him if she had not been blinded by her own arrogance. As the UES Freedom disappeared among the stars, Princess Lyra felt the full weight of her regret. She had not just dismissed a primitive human captain at Aurora Prime. She had rejected the chance to learn from one of the most remarkable leaders in the galaxy. Princess Lyra Veltar stood in her private chamber, looking at the data tablet that would change her empire forever. The power core upgrades were working beyond all expectations. Energy output had increased by 40%, and the improved efficiency meant her people would have abundant power for generations. But the technical success was overshadowed by a more complex realization. The collaboration between human and Zephyrian engineers had revealed something troubling about her empire's approach to other species. Lady Vera Stormwind entered the chamber carrying additional reports. "Your Highness, the results are remarkable. Dr. Rachel Monroe's team wants to expand the collaboration to include environmental systems and transportation networks." Lyra set down the tablet and walked to her window. "What do our people think?" About working with humans? The younger engineers are enthusiastic. The older nobles are concerned about becoming dependent on primitive technology. Primitive technology that solved problems we couldn't handle for decades, Lyra said quietly. Vera studied the princess's face. Your Highness, you seem troubled by our success. Lyra turned away from the window. I've been reading Morrison's personal files. Do you know what I found? No, Your Highness. He's been offered command positions by 7 major governments, supreme leadership roles that would give him power over entire star systems. He turned them all down to continue exploring and making peaceful contact with new species. Vera frowned. That seems like poor judgment. Why refuse such opportunities? Because he understands something we don't. Lyra picked up another tablet showing reports from across the galaxy. Morrison isn't building an empire, he's building something much more valuable. Which is trust, respect, genuine friendship between species who might otherwise never cooperate. The holographic display in Lyra's chamber activated, showing a star map of human activities. Green lines connected dozens of systems representing peaceful relationships and mutual aid agreements. Look at this pattern, Lyra said, pointing to the display. Every system where Morrison has made contact is now part of an informal network of cooperation. They share resources during emergencies, collaborate on research projects, and settle disputes through mediation instead of violence. Vera studied the map carefully. It's impressive, but it's not an empire. There's no central control, no tribute systems, no military dominance. Exactly. Morrison has created something our empire could never build with all our advanced technology and military power. He's created relationships based on genuine mutual benefit. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Agent Nina Cross appeared on the communication screen, reporting from the Outer Rim territories. Your Highness, I have news about Captain Morrison's current mission. What is it, Nina? He's made contact with a previously unknown species called the Ethereals. They're energy beings that live in the corona of a star. First contact protocols suggested they would be hostile to any physical species. Lyra leaned forward. And Morrison spent 3 weeks learning to communicate with them through modulated electromagnetic fields. The Ethereals have agreed to share their knowledge of stellar engineering in exchange for human art and music. Art and music? Apparently, the Ethereals had never encountered the concept of creative expression for emotional purposes. Morrison's team introduced them to human poetry, painting, and symphonies. The Ethereals are fascinated by the idea of beauty existing for its own sake. Lyra closed her eyes. Only Morrison would think to offer art to energy beings living in a star. Only he would find a way to make that trade valuable to both species. There's more, Your Highness. The Ethereals have asked Morrison to introduce them to other species. They want to learn about different forms of creative expression throughout the galaxy. After Nina signed off, Lyra sat in silence for several minutes. Vera waited patiently, understanding that the princess was working through something important. Vera, I need to ask you something difficult, Lyra said finally. Of course, Your Highness. Do you think I could ever be the kind of leader Morrison is? Vera considered the question carefully. Your Highness, you have many fine qualities. You're intelligent, decisive, and devoted to your people's welfare. That's not what I asked. Vera was quiet for a moment. Morrison has something that cannot be taught or learned from books. He genuinely cares about every being he meets, regardless of their species or status. He sees potential for good in everyone and works to bring out the best in others. And I don't have that. Your Highness, you've been raised to see other species as potential threats or resources to be managed. Morrison was raised to see them as potential friends. The difference in perspective shapes everything else. Lyra nodded slowly. I've been thinking about our first meeting at Aurora Prime. I keep wondering what would have happened if I had responded differently. How so? What if I had listened to what he was really offering instead of dismissing him? What if I had seen his courtesy as strength instead of weakness? Vera activated her own tablet and showed it to the princess. Your Highness, perhaps it's not too late to find out. The tablet displayed a formal invitation from Ambassador Elena Voss. She was organizing a peace conference to address rising tensions between several Outer Rim colonies. The invitation specifically requested both Zephyrian and human participation. "Morrison will be there?" Lyra asked. "According to the guest list, yes, along with representatives from every major government in this sector." Lyra studied the invitation. "What would be the purpose of attending? The Power Core collaboration is complete. Morrison has no reason to seek further contact with our empire." "Perhaps. The purpose would be to show him that you've learned from his example." The next day, Princess Lyra called a meeting of her senior advisors. She announced her intention to attend the peace conference and to formally apologize to Captain Morrison for her previous behavior. The reaction was immediate and negative. "Your Highness, apologizing to a human will be seen as weakness," Lord Commander Kane protested. "It will undermine our negotiations with other species," added Trade Minister Frost. "The Zephyrian Empire does not apologize to primitive species," declared Admiral Storm. Lyra listened to all their objections, then stood up to address the room. "The Zephyrian Empire has been stagnating for decades. Our technology is advanced, but our thinking is outdated. We've been so concerned with maintaining our superiority that we've forgotten how to grow." She activated the holographic display showing Morrison's network of peaceful relationships. "This human captain has accomplished more in 1 year than our empire has achieved in the past century. He's created lasting peace, solved complex problems, and earned genuine respect from dozens of species. He did it not through dominance or superiority, but through humility and service." Lord Commander Kane stood up. "Your Highness, surely you're not suggesting we model our empire on human behavior. I'm suggesting we learn from it. The Power Core collaboration showed us what's possible when we work with others as equals, instead of trying to control them as subjects." Admiral Storm shook his head. "This is madness. The Zephyrian Empire rules through strength, not through serving others." Lyra looked around the room at the faces of her advisors. She saw fear, confusion, and resistance to change. But she also saw something else in the eyes of the younger members. Hope. "Then perhaps it's time for the Zephyrian Empire to rule differently," she said. At the peace conference, Princess Lyra arrived with a small delegation that included Dr. Rachel Monroe and Commander Beth Walsh. She had specifically chosen Zephyrians who had worked directly with Morrison's team and understood the value of collaboration. Morrison was already at the conference, mediating a dispute between the Rigel colonies and a group of independent traders. Lyra watched him work from across the room, noting how he listened more than he spoke and asked questions that helped each side understand the other's perspective. When the mediation session ended successfully, Morrison noticed Lyra watching. He approached her with the same polite professionalism he had shown during their technical collaboration. "Your Highness, I'm glad to see you here. These conferences work best when all major powers participate." Lyra took a deep breath. "Captain Morrison, I came here specifically to speak with you. I owe you an apology that's long overdue." Morrison's expression didn't change, but she saw something shift in his eyes. "Your Highness, as I've said before, no apology is necessary. It is necessary. For me, if not for you." Lyra stepped closer, lowering her voice so their conversation would remain private. "At Aurora Prime, I judged you and your people based on prejudice and arrogance. I was wrong, and my empire has suffered for my blindness. Your Highness, we all make judgments based on incomplete information. What matters is how we respond when we learn better. You're being more gracious than I deserve. I want you to know that your example has changed how I think about leadership. You've shown me that true strength comes from empowering others, not from dominating them." Morrison studied her face carefully. "That's a difficult lesson for anyone in power to learn. It goes against most of our instincts. Will you give me a chance to prove that I've learned it?" Before Morrison could answer, Dr. Kate Phillips approached them. She had grown close to Morrison during their months of working together, and Lyra could see the affection in her eyes when she looked at him. "Jake, they're asking for you in the mediation room. The Vegan traders and the Altarian Republic are having trouble reaching an agreement." Morrison nodded, then turned back to Lyra. "Your Highness, actions speak louder than words. If you've truly learned from our interactions, the galaxy will benefit from your new perspective." As Morrison walked away with Dr. Phillips, Lyra felt a complex mixture of emotions. There was sadness at opportunities lost, but also determination to become the leader her people deserved. Over the following months, Princess Lyra implemented changes throughout the Zephyrian Empire. She opened diplomatic channels with species they had previously ignored. She authorized collaborative research, projects with former rivals. Most importantly, she began approaching galactic politics as an opportunity to serve rather than to dominate. The changes were not easy. Many traditional nobles resisted, and some colonial governors openly rebelled against the new policies. But the younger generation of Zephyrians embraced the reforms, especially those who had worked with Morrison's team. A year later, Lyra received a message that both pleased and saddened her. Morrison had been offered the position of Galactic Mediator, a new role created by the Centauri Federation to help resolve conflicts between species. He had accepted, but only on the condition that the position be rotated among different species every few years. The message included a personal note. Your Highness, I've been following the changes in the Zephyrian Empire with great interest. Your commitment to collaboration and mutual benefit has been noticed throughout the galaxy. Perhaps we could work together on some future project that serves the common good. Princess Lyra read the note several times. It was polite, professional, and friendly. But it was not personal. The opportunity for a deeper relationship had passed, lost to her own pride and prejudice during their first meeting. She understood now what she had truly lost at Aurora Prime. It wasn't just a political, alliance, or trade agreement. She had lost the chance to know and learn from a remarkable person during the most formative period of his career. She had lost the opportunity to be part of something greater than herself. But she had also found something valuable. By learning, from Morrison's example, even from a distance, she had discovered a better way to lead and serve her people. The Zephyrian Empire was becoming the kind of power that lifted others up instead of holding them down. As Princess Lyra looked out at the stars from her palace window, she felt a peace she had never known before. Morrison had quietly walked away from her contempt and built something beautiful in the galaxy. In trying to follow his example, she had found her own path to becoming the leader she had always claimed to be. She had lost her chance with Jake Morrison, but she had found herself. Perhaps in the end, that was the most valuable gift he could have given her.